Hey everyone, welcome back to DR Sports and welcome back to Talking Tactics. It's not a happy one for me. It's not a happy one. It's not really a happy one for you.
It's not, but I don't feel like yours it could have been a lot worse for you.
Oh, it could have.
Yeah.
Oh, Tottenham did us a big favour.
Massive.
Which is why I'm going to spend a lot of time praising Tottenham on this one. It's easier today. They did us a favour and look, they actually deserve it.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
We've been very critical on this show about Tottenham.
Yeah.
And I think it's only right that they didn't just park the bus to a 1-0 win. They really earned this one. So we'll go into that and we'll talk about Liverpool, what's going on. I actually want to really explore this because again, unlike Tottenham, I think they've been getting away with it on this show a little bit
Probably,
too much.
yeah. I think it's time. We've been speaking a lot about Arsenal, a lot about Chelsea, but I think
Yeah.
these two teams in particular, they need their shine.
I completely agree. So we're gonna praise Spurs. We're gonna tear Liverpool apart. We have a Kane Haaland debate, and I think we need to talk about obviously Arsenal. They did lose and praise Everton and Sean Dyche. Very quickly, how are you, Matisse?
Very good.
Yeah?
Very good.
Busy?
Very busy. And I said to myself, do you know what? I have to go back and watch some of these because some of the shocks were happening whilst I was on other content. I said I need to go back and watch some of this stuff because we had some great results this weekend.
Yeah.
This is why we love the Premier League. Is weekends
why.
like this.
Yeah, this
Fantastic.
Is why. It threw up a lot of drama. Who knew Arsenal could lose to Everton and come out of it the happier of the two teams in the title race? That's kind of the weird thing. Unless Man United are in there, some United fans will say so, and I don't think you can look past them. But let's talk about Man City and Tottenham. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start praising or do you want to start slandering?
Let's start with the praise.
Let's start with the
I don't
praise.
want Tottenham to not get their shine here because the
I
first
agree.
goal comes from them pressing high up the pitch and actually being organised in that press. And I've been asking for many weeks, what do Tottenham do? Do you defend competently and counter? Do you press? Do you keep possession? Because they haven't been able to do any of those things.
Yeah.
But in this game, they actually demonstrated all of those things.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really big turning point. Obviously, we know Conte is out at the moment due to illness. And the assistant manager steps in. I don't know who did the tactics, etc. But there was a clear difference in Tottenham's in terms of their organisation and their structure. And also, Eric Dyer, really good performance. And actually, I don't know why this wasn't tried earlier on. It's actually something we've never spoken about. And I know I regretted it when I was watching it. I was like, how comes we haven't spoken about Tottenham kind of moving that central defensive player in their three and moving him into holding midfield and giving that extra option in midfield so they're not overran. And then if you are bypassed, then he can just slot straight back into that back three.
And yeah, I'm with you. It's annoying because we've actually seen it with David Luiz and Conte. We've actually seen that very thing happen. He was a good ball playing centre-back Dyer's, had experience in midfield. So Luiz, Dyer stepping in, it made sense. You're right, I can't believe we haven't picked it up. But you're right to illustrate the press and it comes from the goal. And it's only right we recreated it. Harry Kane's 267th, I believe. That beats Jimmy Greaves' record. But it all comes from the team and the press. And what I really like about it, we can criticise City, and we will later.
More than you can believe.
More than you can believe. But it's more just the little traps they've set themselves and the little sort of man marking. You can even actually include Bentancur in that. You can look at the fact that Son's ready to pounce. You can look at Dyer. You can look at the fact that Højbjerg's keeping an eye there on Lewis. Kulusevski's got an eye on Kane. And as this progresses and Alvarez plays that ball back, the first thing I think Rodri does wrong, he lures the press in because he kind of just lets it run across his body. He's waiting for the pass. So once he does that, you're thinking...
Now it's suffocation mode.
And you're thinking... Go to Walker. Okay, maybe Kane's there. Go to Edison. Would you try the switch to Ake? Probably not. You back your left foot.
Maybe it's some sort of out ball just to get them. But Manchester City are like so obsessed with playing.
Exactly.
They want to play in every situation. So they're always going to invite this.
Højbjerg reads it. Young Lewis has come into midfield, the inverted role. Again, we'll talk about City's shape in a second. Mahrez and Grealish are really high and wide. So they're waiting for City to play out so that they can go then stretch the pitch and make it really difficult for them. But Højbjerg, I think, does so well. By the way, my man of the match as well. Rolls it into Kane. And it's a really brilliant finish. But it's just like, it's calamitous from City. But it's really good from Tottenham just to set the traps. And just at this very moment, they sensed it. And Bentancur actually then does well to kind of hold his run and let Højbjerg drive forward. He goes, right, you've got this, off you go. And it's a lovely touch. Rides the challenge from Lewis, rolls it into Kane. Good goal.
Højbjerg and Bentancur, and these are very good players. Bentancur coming back into his team has been huge. You could really see that they missed his presence, especially in the first phase when they're building up. He's so press resistant. He's so good at carrying the ball. They really, really missed him when he was out. But they're all very good players. The only issue with Tottenham over the season has been that they're all the same. same, or they're all very similar. And there hasn't been, it's not to say any of them are awful, they're actually all, when they're all at their best, even contributing with goals, Højbjerg, Bentancur, they've all actually contributed, but it's just the fact that there's no other profile in there. When the going gets tough and you need something different, they're not able to give you that.
They're sort of the perfect side to play City in terms of...
exactly.
They've got real counter-attacking threat, they've got energy in midfield, bundles of it as well.
And 5 wins in a row at home against City as well.
That's right.
No goals conceded.
That's
and
true.
We can see why, isn't it?
They've got wins at the Etihad over the years, and this is a side that, I mean, look how positive that is. Look how near they all are. They could easily be sitting off. That was the disappointment, I think, for Tottenham, the North London derby. They let Arsenal have the ball. Granted, I actually think Arsenal this season have played out the back better than Man City. So maybe they sense that vulnerability in City, Tottenham. But I just think they executed it really well. If we look at the two shapes, because Man City, I thought, it's a 4-4-2 on paper, but it looked kind of anything but. It was sort of Haaland up top, Alvarez and Bernardo sort of either side with Rodri, Mahrez and Grealish really high up the pitch, and then Walker and Lewis were kind of the two either side of Rodri, but then sometimes it would become a 3 and Rodri would come across. I mean, it felt like a total identity crisis from a Man City perspective. Alvarez in that pocket feels a weird one.
Yeah, it's very
De Bruyne has made for it. I don't really know what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, he dropped De Bruyne to the bench. I don't actually get on his back for that, purely because I've been watching Manchester City and De Bruyne has not been great. And even when he's brought De Bruyne and Haaland on in games like Southampton, they haven't been able to conjure up anything. So I do believe that, there's a lot of players, maybe outside of Mahrez since the turn of the year. Rico Lewis has been, a new young player to come into the team, and he's obviously been given a lot of responsibility. Half the fact that he's a really, really good footballer, but secondly also Cancelo as well. We know there's been issues there, he's been loaned out. But I do believe that Manchester City, as we keep saying, look incredibly predictable, and they don't have any support for their wingers. There's nobody making any overlapping runs. There's no underlapping run from any fullback. So you're relying upon your Bernardo Silvas and your Alvarez's. Now, Alvarez, when I foresaw him coming into this team, it was either going to be up front, which is difficult, I know, because Haaland is up there, or coming off the flank as like a Jesus type player to make those runs and just purely looking to make runs off of Haaland, similar to how Foden was doing at the start of the season when Foden was in brilliant form. But to play him in that role there, I just don't get it. I personally just don't understand it. Now, maybe it's, I don't know, for the press, that's the only kind of thing I could maybe think of. Maybe it's, because when De Bruyne plays there, he basically presses with Haaland in a front two, and they go into a two-man press, because we know Haaland's not as intense with his pressing as Jesus or Sterling or all these guys. So that's kind of what it becomes. But at the same time, I just feel like Man City at the moment, they've gone really, really far away from what made them their best, and now this is almost like a transition, but I don't know what they're actually trying to transition into, because they're just losing all of their threats. Game in, game out, I keep watching them. They're actually becoming very boring to watch. Really and Haaland had no shots in this game, not a single shot. I think opposition touches in the box was something like 1, and something like that. It was honestly, it was lackluster to say the least, man. It was really poor.
They were highlighting it well on Sky, the fact that Haaland, he does make runs. He is still
but they don't spot them.
They don't spot them at all. But at the same time, you've got Mahrez can pick a pass. You've got Grealish. You've got Bernardo Silva. Even Rodri can. Even without De Bruyne on the pitch, they have plenty of talent to try and unlock Haaland. So I sort of understand having this many sort of creative outlets in the team. If when Haaland's making those kind of runs, you're at least trying to play the pass. But Haaland and those runs seem to go against everything that Pep Guardiola is about, which is total control. So it's a really strange one. And people didn't like it when we said 2 months ago, and it was 2 months ago, are City compromising too much on who they were for Erling Haaland? And people said, oh, you're ridiculous. Look at the goals he's scoring. Look at everything they're doing.
I remember the comments. They were going after you.
I'll never forget them. But Haaland is doing his job. Let's not move away from that. He's doing his job.
He's not going to change he's not going to become Harry Kane.
No.
That's not his remit. That's not his profile. He is going to make those runs in behind. He's going to be in the box. He's going to be a poacher. Everybody else is going to have to cater to that in terms of being more direct. Now, and then when they are more direct with De Bruyne, sometimes if it doesn't work, then they look predictable. And as long as you actually stop that ball in and you deal with Haaland in the box, which is not easy, but Liverpool have shown at Anfield this season they could do it, and other teams as well. Chelsea, I think he didn't score at Stamford Bridge. He was kind of struggling there in the league game. Tottenham now in this game as well.
The Emirates coming
The Emirates as well. All of the big games away, actually, it's been quite a struggle for Haaland this season. it's more been like the Wolves and the, you know, the Aston Villas, etc. He's kind of been taking advantage of those teams.
He'll 100% score against Arsenal now that we've said all this. But you're right, he has struggled in games, but I think because City haven't had the kind of control they normally would as well. And we know that he's not just a poacher, he's powerful, he can run in behind and all that. But I think he does feed on that service, and he will put it in the back of the net. But at the moment, everything around him isn't right at City. But you have segued really nicely into a Kane, Haaland debate. Now, I know this looks very scary, everyone. Look at all these numbers.
Wow.
It's a lot. But I've done it on purpose. I really want to make a point. So using FBref, I had a little look at per 90 stats for a lot of things. Premier League 22-23, Kane versus Haaland. On either side of the dash is Kane, Haaland's numbers. Now, apart from goals, shots per 90 and shots on target percentage, where Haaland comes out on top, Kane comes out on top of every single stat here. Pass completion per 90, progressive passes per 90, progressive passing distance, completed medium passes. Let's move ahead to key passes, pass in the final third, switches, crosses per 90, progressive passes received as well, shot creating actions, progressive carries, take-ons attempted, fouls drawn, ball recoveries, tackles, aerials won, touches per 90. Blows them away.
We know who the better footballer is, that's for sure. We know who offers more outside of the box. That's for sure. Chance creation, etc. Now, this is simple for me because Harry Kane has been given a lot of stick after the World Cup, obviously for the penalties, etc. We know as a big game player, there's question marks over can he handle the pressure. But there should never be any questions about his record in this league. Year in, year out, 17, 18, 20, 25 goals, whatever have you will. And even in that off-season where he wanted to go to Manchester City and at the start of the campaign he was very, very poor and he looked like his head had been gone, he still managed to tally up about 17 goals by the end of that season. And that's in a Tottenham team that don't create a lot of chances, that play in a very, most of the time, negative style with Jose Mourinho, Conte, Nuno.
Exactly.
And he's usually having to exceed his XG. Now, Haaland is an incredible finisher and he's going to probably break the record, I'm sure, although he's starting to slow down a little bit since the turn of the year. But you would not ask Haaland to try and do what Kane does because he would never be able to get it done. It's just not, you know, in terms of the two footballers, they're poles apart.
And the thing is, I understand Haaland's banging in loads of goals, but Kane's got 17 in a team that look as, well, up till that City game, look as boring as anything in the league. And he's still scoring goals. So, you know, you wonder then what Kane would bring. Kane is the 9 that Guardiola, I think, really wants in that City team. There's a reason they chased him for so long. Now, Haaland is an unreal goal machine.
That was the preference, you feel?
I think so, personally. A, they were willing to go up to 100 million to sign him. But B, look at everything he does from his hold-up play to pass. But you just got to.
They don't have to compromise their game as much.
I don't think they would have had to compromise their game as much. I still think they would have wanted pace around him. I don't think Kane's the solution for Man City.
No.
But I just think he was more the number 9 that would have continued basically all the good work they'd done. And with a bit of pace around him, you know, the wingers, and he still can get in behind Kane as well. I think he'd have been unbelievable for them. I think he would be on near 25 goals if he were playing in this City team as well. But two phenomenal strikers, so we'll leave it to you. Who is the better one, Kane or Haaland? Are you looking purely at the goals, or are you looking at everything else? Maybe you divide it between goal scorer and footballer. Or if someone were to say Haaland's still a better goal scorer,
but Kane now has, what is it, 200 goals in for one club? Well,
so the Greaves record was 267, I believe he's got.
267, but then obviously he's chasing the all-time Premier League record as well.
Yeah, I don't know how far he is off that.
So
unbelievable.
He's almost catching up to Wayne Rooney. I think it's 9 goals away from Wayne Rooney. So even as a goal scorer, I mean, Haaland is probably going to eclipse every record in world football in terms of goal scoring, but he's still got to do it. Kane's obviously already shown that he's a brilliant goal scorer year in, year out.
Yeah. We'll leave it to you. Let us know your thoughts. Let's talk. This is the painful bit about Everton beating Arsenal, and I've got to give them real credit today as well. Actually, what we'll do, we'll sort of look at it from 2 perspectives, and I can't even open up the right tab. So there's... I felt, again, similarly to Tottenham, they're in a different system. They both pressed really well and also found a really good deep shape. And I've got 2 different kind of ways of illustrating it. But just your thoughts on Everton's performance, the Sean Dyche effect, and what went wrong for Arsenal?
Well, Everton finally went to something that they should have kind of done a long time ago, which was be a little bit less attractive and a little bit more productive and a little bit more,
That screams productive, doesn't it?
Yeah, because this is like turning back time to David Moyes when Fellaini and all those type of players being a little bit more direct. And they did switch the wingers over. Iwobi started off on the left, McNeil on the right, and he said, you know what, no, we're going to go very simple here. Calvert-Lewin's being a little bit isolated. We're going to get the players on the left and right foot and just have them crossing and have them stretching the play. But for me, the key here was defensively. They were very much like Newcastle. And I feel like when Arsenal come up against a team that is willing to be 100% maximum concentration on defence, 4-5-1, these two will come back, McNeil, and then they become very narrow in the centre areas and they just make sure that the centre of the goal is just covered, absolutely covered. There's no gaps. Odegaard was suffocated. Saka had like 2-3 men on him. They couldn't switch the play out to Martinelli quick enough, and there was just no gaps. And that's exactly what Newcastle did at the Emirates. They just didn't leave a single stone unturned. And again, that's why when I look at this game, and I'd be interested to see your thoughts on Arsenal, but I can't overly go at Arsenal because it's not a running thing that is a consistent problem. It's just when a certain team goes into that max mode of concentration, any team's going to struggle to break that team down. Every team's going to lose a couple of games a season. What is this, Arsenal's second defeat?
Yeah, second defeat.
And it took an Everton team with a new manager. They worked their asses all week, you can bet. The organisation was on point, and I mean, this is just Sean Dyche to a T, isn't it? You got Cody, you got Tchaikovsky, McNeil, former player as well. That's where the goal comes from. 2 Burnley players. Calvert-Lewin, he can win his aerial duels. Onana covering the ground. Iwobi, like proper P&P, like ready to die. Let's go. It was just a classic Sean Dyche performance, wasn't it? He knows how to get results.
I thought Arsenal were just completely and utterly overwhelmed by Everton, and Sharoy said it best on Forever Arsenal. We just got done, you can be critical of Arsenal's performance, and I was. I think substitutions Arteta could have done more with. Could he have brought on Tierney to ask a different question of the fullback? Saka and Martinelli were getting doubled up on. Could they have done a little bit more to offer an overlap and do something different, to ask different questions? I think Xhaka was really wasteful in the final third. I think Odegaard wasn't having his best game. Partey, Jorginho, the passing was all over the place, and I'll touch on that in a sec. But to credit Everton a little bit more, and I wish I could say this is my work, it's actually Graham's that I've nicked off Tactical Insight, but he talked about the way Doucouré was sort of pressed alongside Calvert-Lewin to make it almost a 4-4-2 shape. The wingers would come really central, and then when it did go to the other side, Gay would shift across with Onana happy to go forward, and then Doucouré would slot in as well. They were tactically, there we go, it's got lost. But they were very tactically fascinating, Everton. And what I thought they did really well is they pressed Arsenal to make sure it was really difficult, that they couldn't play through the middle. And that is illustrated with these pass percentages here. Arsenal's short passing versus Everton against their season average. Short passing, not all passing. 83% for Zinchenko, down from his usual 94%. Partey even, to be fair, but White 87 from 92. Xhaka 86 from 89. And Jorginho down to 79 from his usual 90. That just showed that they couldn't find any fluidity or rhythm. The 5 deep-lying playmakers in this Arsenal team, the controllers, let's say, and they couldn't get any fluidity because Everton's press was so good.
Yeah. And I think the key for Everton is that they didn't just shut up shop and just sit back. They actually did know when to press, when to try and be ambitious and get forward. And what I liked about them as well is they didn't try and play in a way that doesn't suit them. They just decided to go long. They just decided to just bypass Arsenal's press, which we know is ridiculously, good. And they just decided to just go long, get bodies close. And we saw the same thing from Brentford against Manchester City, the Etihad as well. Going long, go and hit Ivan Toney, hit your 2 front men and build from there. More teams should look at doing that. We saw Aston Villa this weekend against Leicester. Martinez trying to play out from the back. A team that, do they really have all of the players to do that? Then they get caught and they give away a goal. I get the fascination with playing out from the back, but it's got to be ridiculously well drilled and it's got to be on point because the pressing in this league right now, everybody seems to have a really strong press. And even Wolves, we saw it as well. We'll get to them in a minute. If you can't evade that, then mix your game up a little bit and try it. Obviously, you need a target man to be able to do that. And Calvert-Lewin, he's kind of gone missing, isn't it? For all he's had injury issues. I'm very interested to see if Sean Dyche can get Calvert-Lewin back in the conversations he was getting into.
I think he will.
I can't wait to see it because Calvert-Lewin's kind of just like, no one's been speaking about him.
I like him as a player as well. And we touched on Everton pressing really well, but when they had to drop into a shape, they did. And these are the shots that they denied Arsenal. Look at that. Basically nothing in that area of the pitch where you want, well, not basically nothing, just nothing. Nothing in that area where you'd want to shoot. We've got Cecil in the building, and a striker would want to be just, nearer to goal, or at least central where he could pick his spot, but everything was limited to a distance.
And that's what we spoke about. Them just literally just covered that area. They just would not allow. They have no problem with you having it out here. They'll go double up, etc. But in here in the box, they're just no nonsense. They're not playing around. And I think there was some sort of clip that went around on Twitter of Sean Dyche talking about this V defense, like in this defensive shape that they've got, and they've obviously pinpointed the different points on the box and how they're going to organise themselves, and making it very simple for the players. Make sure you're in line with that line there, and just, it's simple, basic stuff.
A clip emerged, and I don't know if it was after the Arsenal game or if it was an older clip. I feel it was an older clip, but it was him saying to Sky Sports, the plan is to not let them put the ball in our net and try and put the ball in theirs. And I just thought that is Sean Dyche, if he ever watches this, might go, whatever, lads. But look, what a return for him. Of course, we are probably letting Arsenal get away with it a little bit too much. So what I will say on the game is I just felt that Arsenal, there were three things that went wrong. I think I touched on it earlier. The substitution's a big one. I think he could have done more. It was just like for like. Jorginho come in and try to do what Partey was doing, but better. Trossard tried to do what Martinelli was doing, but better. But I don't actually think Martinelli and Partey were. I think they were struggling because Everton were making them. So I think he had to give them something else to help the team through the pitch. Passing was really poor. I think Arsenal's just fluidity again, forced by Everton's press. I just felt Arsenal lacked like a. All season Arsenal have been kind of the blueprint for zip, for press, for energy, for everything, and we lacked that. And Everton, I think, dragged us down because they were so good. But I also think Arsenal, they definitely had too much sleep in their eyes. For me, they just didn't.
Early kick-off 12:30.
I don't know what it is.
And Everton covered more distance than they've covered in any other Premier League game. Now that for me comes down to a little bit of a manager bounce. I don't expect them to be doing that week in, week out, especially to continue it as well. We've seen Manchester United go toe-to-toe with Arsenal for, covering the ground in the first half of the Emirates, and then a massive, massive drop-off in the second half.
And they caused Arsenal problems that first half.
Will Everton be able to keep that going throughout the whole match on a weekly basis? It's not the youngest team in the world. It's quite maybe a fair, normal average there. Yeah. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting. It will be. Well, we'll see. We'll learn a lot about Arsenal this weekend. If they bounce back, get a convincing win against Brentford, then things happen. You lose games. I think you'll keep them up now. Everton? I think Sean Dyche will keep them up.
I thought that before this game. I said to Mike on this very channel, DR Sports, said I think they'll be fine. And he'll be the right appointment. Okay, time to slander Liverpool. Nah, it's talking tactics, we don't slander. We present evidence to back why we're critical. Why you could slander. That's true. Let me show you something. I think three things have gone wrong for Liverpool. The players, the manager, the people above. Yeah. And we're going to dedicate some time to all three here. Yeah. Because it's about time that we do a proper. I think it is. Let's do some surgery here. Yeah. What is going wrong at Liverpool? I'll start with the manager, and I'm going to start with this. Here's Liverpool's pressing. Tackles in the attacking third, thanks to FBref. By the way, those shots I showed you, Everton Arsenal, that was StatZone, iOS app. Go check that out. But here's their rankings in the Premier League. In the 1920 season, tackles in the attacking third, they ranked first. The season after that, they didn't have a great season, by the way, but they ranked first for tackles in the attacking third. The season after that, they ranked first. They currently rank 16th for tackles in the attacking third. And what is the Jurgen Klopp identity, the blueprint, the thing he brought? The Gegenpress. Where the hell has it gone? Yeah, I mean, they've been outnumbered, not even outnumbered, they've been run through in midfield constantly this season. Going through Liverpool's midfield is literally like putting a knife through butter, as the cliche is, as the saying goes. It's so easy. There's no resistance. There's nobody to enforce any sort of defence or any sort of, no, you're not going to just walk through us here. You're going to have to go out wide. We're going to force you here. We're going to force you there into areas you don't want to go. They just have the freedom of the pitch to just run through. And like you said, from the front, from the pressing from the front, it's not like as if they have the most aging attack. They've now got Nunes, young forward. They've now got Gakpo. So are these players not able to press? Did you get the scouting and recruitment wrong in that aspect? When you look at Liverpool's recruitment and you look at their signings with Edwards and the Manes and the Salahs and the Van Dijks and Alissons, and you look at the recent recruitment with Nunes and you look at Gakpo and you look at the fact that they've kind of been neglecting that midfield position, they've not gone for anyone. You have to question, you have to think what's going on behind the scenes here from above. I know there's a lack of money, people are saying money's not being spent, but Manchester United managed to get someone in on loan. Yeah, true.
Onahi, great World Cup, goes to Marseille for 10 million euros. Yeah. Amrabat, you know, there were other options out there, cheaper alternatives, but they just neglected these issues and they favoured going for a Gakpo instead, who didn't cost the world, but he hasn't done anything as of yet. And I think Liverpool, for me, they've allowed their average age to get too high for a team that is based on running, that is based on covering the ground, rock and roll, back and forth, transition. You can't do that with an aging team. You can't do that with Henderson, with Fabinho, with Milner, with all of these guys. You know, you have to have a young team to do that.
But
they haven't got it.
Are they even trying to? That is an enormous drop-off.
The front line is nuts.
And last year, they were doing it. Yeah. So I understand tiring, but that would surely show itself from like the 60th minute onwards. But they're getting torn apart in the 12th minute. By 12 minutes, they're 2-0 down.
Yeah.
So my thing is, and this is where, and we are going to dedicate to all three, but with Klopp, right, you're playing Harvey Elliott wide left when he's not like an in-behind runner kind of player. So you kind of got a left-footed creator on the left, which always feels a little bit awkward. You're going for a midfield that feels a little unbalanced to me. You know, Trent's in, then he's not, and you don't really know what's going on there. And I'm just looking, it's like, okay, even forget the lineups. Run, press. Dyche did it in no time with Everton.
Yeah.
And he did it, Klopp himself, in no time with a far worse group when he went to Tottenham. Against a good Tottenham, Pochettino's Tottenham. Yeah. At the very start, his first ever game. He got them running. You know, so what? I don't get it. Like, why have they fallen so far away from the thing that made them who they are?
He's been there for 7 years. That is a long time. And he's had the same group of players, most of them. There's been a couple new faces here and there in the last summer and the last winter. But mainly, that's the same group of players. So you're looking at the same group of players, bar a couple sales and a couple incomings. He's been very, very loyal to the Chamberlains and the Caters, etc. Now you're looking at the same manager. And then you're also, you know, combining that with missing out on titles and missing out on big trophies, Champions League finals, lots of football played, going to all the finals last season, missing out on Champions League, Premier Leagues by a point or by, you know, a final. And it's very difficult to motivate and cultivate that environment and keep it going. You know how Klopp is. He's a very emotional manager. Tactically, you wouldn't say he's one of the best. You would say he's driven on his emotion. He's driven on his way of playing, which is a strict way. I don't think he has many different ways of playing. I think he likes his 4-3-3. I think he likes his midfielders to be not road runners, but he wants them to cover the ground, work hard, press, you know, win the ball back, etc. He's got his creative outlets at fullback, and he's got his goal-scoring wingers that have molded their game around a really good, technically secure Firmino all these years. And that's how he's been playing. He's overrun people in midfield, and he's had his goals come in from the forwards, and it's worked. But he doesn't try and do other, like, you have never seen him invert a fullback or you know, change to a back three. He just doesn't do it. So he's one way or no way. The players are now falling, you know, they're kind of losing all of their energy and they're kind of falling off as well. And then they'll say a lack of investment as well in terms of they're not spending enough money.
Let's touch on the behind the scenes stuff, because you just said lack of investment. They have spent money, but this is an interesting tweet from Melissa Reddy. It's all the way back on the 24th of November 2022. Worrying developments at Liverpool in critical roles. Michael Edwards' exit was sizable enough. We know Michael Edwards, a lot of credit for the recruitment, as you touched on. Yeah. Now his successor Julian Ward and the Director of Research Ian Graham, widely viewed as the best in the business, will also depart. All as Mike Gordon takes a step back. Too much change. Yeah. Now, I thought that was a really interesting tweet. Summed up brilliantly what was going on there. You add to that they're potentially looking at new owners as well, and then all the change that needs to go on the pitch as well. Yeah. So Liverpool just going through a massive transition. So is there a sense of, you know what, they've been amazing. They've come up against Man City, and now there's questions over how legit all that was, but they came up against a Man City that were just relentless. Yeah. Are they just allowed an off year? Are they allowed an off year? Sort everything out at home?
They've had a couple off years, haven't they? But I think.
But even in the 2021,
they still managed to get themselves back to third.
It was a weird season, didn't they?
A lot of injuries.
No one in stadiums, a lot of injuries, and they finished third, right? Yeah. So are they just allowed an off year, and then you say to Klopp, look, it's been a bad year, but think about what you want the next iteration of Liverpool to be. Let's start putting the building blocks in. You might finish 10th, and we go again.
I think Liverpool can have an off year, 100%, or they can actually see this as, no, we need to rebuild and we need to go again. And that may lead to 2 or 3 off years. Yeah. I think if they treat this as an off year and try to stick with a lot of these players and try and go for a title charge next year, they might find themselves falling short again, and then they're not really kicking on. Whereas if they treat this as, okay, this is the end for a lot of these players, Fabinho, what has happened to him? Yeah. Surely it's the end for him as well, you know, but you've got to be ruthless and cutthroat. And Klopp's going to have to drop a lot of those existing loyalties and say, actually, no, this is not just an off year. This is a clear issue. You know, this is not a fluke. Because an off year is like an outlier. I wouldn't look at this Liverpool team and think this is an outlier. I would say that if they continue with this team and they don't make the changes needed, this will happen next year and it will happen the year after, because their players are regressing and they're getting older and older. So they can't treat this as an off season. They have to treat this as, we need to make surgery. We need to make big changes. And it's going to take time in terms of those players that come in to actually find the Liverpool level if the recruitment is spot on. And obviously from a recruitment standpoint, they've lost some people, some key people, but they can't treat this as Salah will be back next year, Fabinho will be back next year. Because if they're not, which I don't think they will be, especially Fabinho and maybe some of those centre-backs that are extremely injury prone, the midfield is injury prone. If you don't treat this as what it is, you're not gonna be coming back.
Shake-up needed at Liverpool, but let's not let the players get away with it either, because this kind of stuff, I just don't think you can even look at the manager for. Now,
I'm on to Thiago today.
Are you? Fair enough.
Yeah.
I actually want to hear about that, because I recreated the first goal. Now, we touched on the manager, we touched on the people above. Now, my issue with the goal is this is very simply, I've never been coached by a world-class manager. I have never played at the level anything like this. I played football on Sunday.
Yeah.
And our centre-back won the ball and he charged up the pitch with it. And I went, you go, I'll sit. It's the most basic stuff.
Yeah.
The most basic stuff. And you've got a similar thing here where it's like, I sort of don't want to, let's see if we can actually highlight, let's do a little highlight. Player, add a player, and let's find him, Gomez, where is he? Gomez, let's highlight him in yellow. Cool, all done. Right, so Gomez is there, because he's followed, I think it's Sarabia, I think he's followed him all the way out to the, apologies to any Wolves fans watching this, why we're not crediting their players. Apologies, it is very Liverpool focused, I understand, but Wolves are doing some fantastic stuff as well with Lopetegui. But Gomez follows him all the way, Gakpo's there too, and okay, they've kind of dealt with it. He's done his job, he's forced him back. Now, what annoys me is that Gomez has to sort of track back here, so he follows him, and then he has to start to run back, because no one's covered in for him.
Yeah.
So he's going back to try and resume his spot. But at this point, the damage is done. The ball goes over the top, as we'll see. Hwang with a lovely run. But Gomez is now chasing back. So he's trying to cover two positions. He's trying to stop the guy who is in the end played the ball, and then get back to the person who's running onto it. And then it's an own goal from Matip. But I'm looking at it, I'm just thinking, you're not even doing your jobs for each other.
Yeah.
Now, when Gomez is gone, and if you're asking, well, who? I don't know. Batshetic maybe can drop in. You know, you've got at Gakpo, Thiago, you can all rearrange yourselves. Or maybe Matip comes across, Keita, I don't know, something. But I feel a little bit sorry for Gomez, because he's gone all the way there to do the defending, and then no one's covered. And that is, Robertson hasn't exactly tucked in. You know, he's not dealing with anything to his left-hand side. Maybe tuck in and watch that run. And then the whole thing ultimately ends in a goal, and you're sitting there watching it going, you're not even as players doing your jobs for each other.
They're sleeping, half of them. They're actually sleeping. Like, when you see the goals conceded, I'm now looking at their body language, because Liverpool, Klopp, it's on emotion. This whole, like, in terms of matching them financially, City, no. In terms of even matching them sometimes technically, not always. But in terms of matching them, in terms of the emotional side of the game, and the fact that they're willing to run through brick walls for Jurgen Klopp, I'm not seeing that. And when they concede their goals, I'm looking at the body language to see who's picking up this team. Who's looking around and saying, no, not today. We're going to come back from this. Everybody heads up. Let's go again. You can see who the leaders are and who aren't. I'm not seeing it in this team. When the goal's conceded, they're like, here we go again. Like, and it's like, well, if you're going to think like that, it's gonna be very much like that in your play, and it's going to speak volumes in the scoreline, and that's exactly what happened. Because Wolves were relentless. And Wolves, by the way, have played Liverpool twice already in recent times. So there's no tactical shock, and they played them at Anfield, and they should have won. So they've almost got their revenge in that aspect. But Liverpool, they're just so easy to play against. Like, they're just poor. Even in terms of doing the basics, like you said, tracking for others, they're not doing it. midfield, I feel very sorry for the young 18-year-old. I think he's 18, maybe turned 19, but I think he's 18, Bacitic. He's just getting rolled around at the moment. Sometimes I look at him and he looks like he's ready to play. And then sometimes I look at him in his duels and I think, a little bit lightweight, probably too early. But he has to play now because Fabinho's dropped off, but he doesn't get any help from Thiago defensively. He's not tracking any runners. We spoke about it with Eriksen before, and now Thiago as well. They don't track runners. This guy, defensively, he's just not involved. He doesn't care. He's like, if I've got the ball, I'm going to give you your fancy passes. I'm going to give you your no-look passes, all of this kind of stuff, and I'm going to look great. But off the ball, nah, I'm not involved. Don't even talk to me. And Keita, need I say more? I mean, we all know he's going to run out of contract at the end of the season anyway. So
yeah, and he'll probably go.
It's a mess.
That's it, everyone. Those are our, 3 reasons why we think things are going wrong at Liverpool. The manager, the pressing stats, they're so far off. If they drop from like 2nd to 5th or 6th, you go, well, okay, maybe it is in the players a little bit. But from 1st to 16th, you can't tell me you can't coach them to run more. That is the one thing I think with Klopp.
The thing is he's brought in Thiago, and Thiago's been great for Liverpool up until this season now, where you're looking at him like, But if you're going to bring in a player like Thiago, you should be dominating possession a lot more.
Well, at least that.
Because off the ball, he's not...
possession stats are quite good, to be fair.
Yeah, but
I did look that
I
up.
feel like whenever they lose the ball, like you said, they don't press. So then, do you fall back into a low block and be organised? No. You kind of don't do either. So they're kind of caught in no man's land. Like you said, the pressing stats are awful, but you've never really ever looked at Liverpool and said, in a low block, they're going to be organised and they're going to be, really defensive and defensively resilient. So they're kind of just doing neither, and then they're just letting everybody run through them, and they're just hopeless really at this point.
I do think when all is said and done, I do think Klopp is a part of the solution. While he might be a part of the problem right now, and there's lots of problems, I don't think he's anywhere near the top of the list, and I think he's the solution. And I think the one thing Liverpool can do now is look, well, whose contracts are running out? Who are we selling?
Yeah.
Who isn't a part of this project? And then who are we building around? Who's that core? Alisson's still a big part. Trent, you've got to think. Robertson's still brilliant. Tsimikas, we're really struggling in midfield.
Konate's injury.
Konate, Carvalho, Elliott, players like that. Yeah, Salah with a new contract. What do we want this new Liverpool to be? Start planning for it now. Get 5-6 players in the summer, and then go again. And maybe in a year or 2 years' time, they'll be competitive again, because I don't think Klopp just lost it overnight.
Without that recruitment team, though, is Klopp going to get more responsibility on recruitment? And if he is, can you trust him to identify the right players? Because
I'd love to know if he wanted Jota, Diaz, Nunez,
Gakpo.
3 predominantly left-sided players you can also play.
And then for Salah, there's no competition apart from a youngster. No competition for Salah. So if Salah needs to kick up,
Football Manager squad's better than this.
If Salah needs to kick up the arse, there's no one there for him apart from who's Doc.
Who signed off on these? I'm not saying they're not good players. They might be, but like,
it's overkill.
Who's? Let me not start.
Hey,
I just balance. Balance.
No
is
balance
so
whatsoever.
much in football is balance.
Yeah.
Look at City.
Yeah.
No balance, they lose.
Yeah.
Liverpool, no balance, they lose.
Yeah.
Get the balance right. When you've got balance, things can just start to, sometimes it's back to basics.
And obviously, I know that they have injuries up front, but you have players that are good enough when they come back.
Oh, they've got injuries. Injuries are a part, let's be fair.
Jota, Diaz, these players, when they come back from injury, you're going to play them. So now you're going to have overkill with Nunez and Gakpo, whereas in midfield, whether they're all fit or they're not good enough, some of them.
Very true. Leicester won 4-2 at Villa. A good win for them.
A lot of individual errors.
Was it?
A lot of defensive. The defending in that game was awful. It was a great game, but the defending was dreadful. I mean,
it goes against form, because Emery had actually made a good start. I think they were one of the form teams. Brentford, they go and score 3 goals just before they come to the Emirates, don't they? United with a win against Palace, they got over the line, that red card, but I think they were always worthy winners. Newcastle being halted again, so I think we should explore that in a future show. What's going on with Newcastle, a little bit struggling for goals. Ever since we sat there, we looked at that starting 11, we went, it's not that good. Why are they this good? The goals have dried up a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. But they are now in a cup final. And Forest have beaten Leeds 1-0. A crucial win for them. And Jesse Marsh has been sacked. So we'll keep an eye on Leeds to see what they do differently now that Jesse Marsh has gone. We'll leave it there. Matisse, amazing as always.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you've enjoyed the show, go let us know in the comments. We'll be there to reply. Let us know what you think of it. Check out everything else that's coming out on DR Sports as well. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Therefore, you'll know when there's a new upload. And there's lots of content coming out. And it's not just football. Tennis is coming back. Am I allowed to say the F1's on its way back?
It is.
Am I spoiling things? See, if you watch the whole show, you get little things like that from us. So we'll leave it there. Many thanks. Really hope you've enjoyed it. We'll catch you on the next one.